The last lecture, we stopped at the questions to be answered with respect to the case what that we have seen in the that is the transaction case that we have seen for the blockchain. So for that we have seen the questions like the following questions need to be answered or addressed as the transaction is happening in the decentralized environment. Like how the stakeholders know that the transaction is there is a transaction initiation. So how it will be known to the stakeholders? The stakeholders is nothing but here the one who participated in the network. For them, how this particular transaction initiation will be known. Next one is how to verify the identity of Ramu and Gopal that we have seen previously that this example, how the identity will be known. So third one is how to ensure that only Ramu initiated the transaction, that is the digital signature. So with this digital signature we can come to know the Ramu has initiated the transaction. How to verify the current balance of Ramu? So that is by using distributed ledger. Since it is a digital currency, how to ensure that Ramu has spent amount to some other user after initiating the transaction to Gopal. So that means since it is digital currency, the same copy can be used for many transactions. So how can you know that there is no double spending of the currency? So this is double spending problem. We'll see this in detail. How the consensus is achieved among the miners in the system, solving the hash puzzles is a solution for the in case of Bitcoin. Then after struggling to solve the hash puzzle, what the miners will get? So what is the benefit to miners if they solve the hash puzzle? So which are said to be incentives. Incentives will be given to the miners, like if they create a block, so block fee will be there, and if they validate the transaction fee will be there. That will be credited to the miner's account. So this is these are the questions, and one by one we'll see how this will be addressed. So how to inform network about a new transaction? Blockchain is the distributed network and the nodes communicate in the peer-to-peer fashion. Hence, the newly generated transactions are flooded in the network such that every user receives the copy of the transaction. So flooding is the best way of using the best way of sending the copy of the transaction over the network. The same is true for the block also. Once the block is created, the block will be flooded in the network. Once a new block is created, it is flooded in the network, and this block will be appended to the blockchain. So Bitcoin peer-to-peer network, it is an ad hoc protocol. Whenever the user want to join, they can enter into this. They can join, and whenever they don't want, they can get out of the network. Ad hoc in the sense on the fly. On the fly means ad hoc. So whenever they want, they can communicate, and whenever they don't want, they cannot communicate. For example, if you look at Bluetooth, Bluetooth is an ad hoc. That means whenever two mobile phones want to communicate, just one person will turn on the Bluetooth, and another person will also turn on the Bluetooth, and the file transfer will go on, and then once it is over, the disconnection will be happened. In the same way, whenever the network sharing is required, one person will go for turning on the hotspot, remaining people will use that particular hotspot, and communication will go on. Once the communication was over, then the hotspot will be disabled. So this is what called ad hoc means. Ad hoc means on the fly. Whenever they want, they can do it, and whenever they want, they can join, and whenever they don't want, they can get out of the network. So ad hoc protocol runs on TCP port, that is 8333. So this particular protocol will work on the port number 833. So this ad hoc network with random topology, you don't know what is the topology here, it's completely random, and you have seen the distributed network topology also. And in this all nodes are considered as equal nodes because there is no think that okay, this is a minimum node and this is a maximum node and this is the highest node, like that. Everybody will be treated as equal. That means everyone will be having the equal opportunity. And new nodes can join at any time. Forget non-responding nodes after 3 hours. If any system joined in the network and it is not giving you any response, or if it is not giving any that means the involvement in the network is low or is not at all there, then the forget time will be 3 hours. After 3 hours, that particular node will be forgotten from the network. Assume that this is the network in which this is the Bitcoin network. Assume that there is no geography mentioned here. These computers may be located in many places. Assume that in the world. So how the peer-to-peer network will communicate? Once if the node, for example, 8 is the node which want to join the network. So first what it will do is, hello world, I am ready to Bitcoin. So I want to join the Bitcoin network. So then it will send an address to any of the node in the network. Like for example 5. So it may send to 1 also, 3 also, whichever is nearest and whichever wherever the blockchain is running. So then the 5 will send who are his neighbors, or to whom it was attached, or in communication. So 5 is in communication with 1 and 7. So 1 and 7 is the address will be sent to 8. Now 8 will form a routing table. Okay, and will connect to the 1 and 7, whether 1 and 7 is responding or not. If they respond, okay, fine. So then it will identify whether what is the nearest hop, or which is the system, or which is the node with which you can have the easy establishment of connection. So that is the reason it has gone for the connection with 1, 6 and 5. So like that the connection will be happened. So this is the way of peer-to-peer network communication. That means if a node was joined in the network, how it will join into the network, and how it will get the neighbors, or how it will get the what are the other participating nodes in the network. So once it is connected, then it will go for if any transaction was started, or if any transaction was held, that transaction will be flooded in the network. Like for example, there is a new transaction A to B. Now this A to B transaction will be flooded in the network from, for example, this transaction initiated at node 4. So it will be flooded to in the network. First this transaction will be reached to its immediate neighbors like 3 and 2. Now 3 and 2 will record this particular transaction. Then from this again flooding will take place. So it keep on, this particular flooding will go on. Okay. So this particular A and B, the transaction to A and B already listened by 7 before 2 send it from 3. So no problem. Okay, it is already here. So it is already updated in this. So further what it will do is, it won't again do any other copying or something. So simply it will forward to next node. So 5. From 3, 6 it went. From 6 it will go to 1 and 8. Like that it will keep on going, and the entire network will be all the network nodes will come to know about this transaction. So should I relay a proposed transaction valid with current blockchain? So script matches a whitelist. Avoid unusual scripts. See here. That means whether so how to identify this means there will be internally some script will be running in this network or framework. So according to the script, which transaction to be allowed and which transaction not to be allowed, this kind of things will be there. This is called Bitcoin script that we'll see after the mining procedure. Have not seen before. If the transaction has not seen before, then it will be updated, and if it is already seen, then it will make a tick mark that okay, it's already seen, so that infinite loops can be avoided. And does not conflict with the other, I have already relayed. That is that means A to B is there, again A to some other thing is there, and balance is not matched or something. This kind of things will happen. then the does not conflict with others I have relayed, then it is said to be avoiding of double spending. We will also see this in detail. So this avoiding unusual scripts, avoiding infinite loops, these are called sanity checks only. Some nodes may ignore them also. So, for example, a new transaction was generated from 1, A to C. So, how it will be spreaded? So, it will be spreaded again like how it was spreaded from node 4. So, already one was previously one don't have this particular transaction because of maybe one may be newly joined, or maybe one does not hear it, or some script may not be executed, maybe any reason, maybe bandwidth may not be sufficient, or maybe response time is very low. You have any chance that one may not listen it. But first this A to C new transaction was listened by one, then it may go for flooding from this. So this 5 may be having the record of A to C, and one may be having the record of a transaction record of A to C. But remaining other things are having the copy of A to B transaction. So this is which transaction from A has to be listened. That is a very important issue here. So this is also called as race condition. Which transaction must be entered into the list. So this is called race condition. Transactions or blocks may conflict in this way. So default behavior is accept whatever you hear first. So that is first come first serve kind of approach that will be used here. Next one is network position matters. So if it is very nearer to the node A or very nearer to the server, this network position also matters in this. Miners may implement other logic, that logics and all we'll see afterwards. Because here in this case, node 1 is actually very far away from node 4, because it has to reach, if it comes 1, 2, 3, after 3 hops, this particular 4 is there. Actually, for the first A to B was started from 4, and it was spreaded here in this area. So that network is also matters in this case. And miners sometimes may implement other logic that by cross-checking whether to the previous pointers of A, okay, whether really A has initiated this one or not, and a digital signature verification, many other operations will be performed. So this we'll see afterwards, after this mining operation and all. Block propagation nearly identical like a transaction propagation. So really a new block, when you hear it, if a block meets the hash target, block has all valid transaction, run all scripts even if you won't relay, and block builds on current longest chain to avoid forks. What is current longest chain means? Because of the fork, sometimes a block may be added as a branch to the existing blockchain. That is called fork. So in order to avoid this fork, usually the longest chain, at least 6 consecutive verified blocks are there, that chain will be considered as a valid chain. So that we'll see afterwards. So this is also avoiding forks. Again, this is also a kind of sanity check. Sometimes some nodes may ignore this. So block propagation time, as the block size increases, the propagation time also increases. So it is just like your bandwidth is limited, and if you want to download the file, if the file size is low, then you can download as fast as possible. And if the file size is too high and it is very difficult for you, or it will take some time to download. Just the same concept is used here. If the block size is lower, then the propagation time decreases. If the block size increases, for example, you look at the graph here, not very efficient, does not depending upon geographical location, focus on decentralization. Here look at the block size from as the block size increases, the propagation time also increased. So how big is the network? You cannot measure what is the size of the network, because the miners will sit in the various places of the country, various places in the world. So impossible to measure exactly. estimates up to 1 million IP addresses per month. So only about 5 to 10 K full nodes are there. That is 5,000 to 10,000 full nodes. So in this, actually two nodes will be there, full nodes and client nodes. Full nodes will be having the entire blockchain on their computer, a copy of entire blockchain. Please remember, full nodes will be having entire blockchain on their computers. At the same time, full nodes can do the mining task also. Where in case of client nodes do not have the complete information of the complete blockchain on their computers. They will be having only the references, hash references to the blockchain, and they will not be having the option of mining procedure, because clients will be run on the low devices, low end devices like mobile phones or laptops, etc. Full nodes will be running on the server machines or maybe big mining machines. So hence these are the full nodes and client nodes. So accordingly, this is around 2 years back data, around 5 to 10,000 full nodes are there in the entire world, which are permanently connected and fully validated. They will do this only this mining task, verification task, validation task and all. So sometimes because of the mining procedure and mining cost and hardware cost and difficulty of mining, which is increasing day by day, so the number of full nodes may be dropping day by day. This is around 2 years back data. I don't think so why this many systems will be there in the current days. So fully validating nodes, permanently connected, store entire blockchain. Here and forward every node or transaction. While coming to the thin or SPV clients, that is full nodes are like this. That is full nodes means which is having the mining option also. Thin nodes are client nodes, does not store everything in this. What will happen is store block headers only block headers will be stored, and request transactions as needed. If they want transaction, then it will be requesting to the main blockchain. And it is only for to verify the incoming payments. Trust fully validating nodes. They will always trust, these clients will trust the nearest trusted mining centers. So they will do all operations with like that. So this having this clients it will save 1000x costs, because this may vary, actually around 23 MB size client will be there, that's all. That you can also install in the lowest devices also. But in case of minor, this fully validating nodes or full nodes will be having require huge infrastructure and the software requirements. So this is what the problem with this thin clients, full nodes. So that is the reason many people will rely on the trusted mining partners or mining agencies. So whatever the transaction validation they want to do, they will do from that. So software diversity, about 90% of nodes run core Bitcoin C++ version of it. Some of the versions are outdated also. Some implementations running like this applications. It is just like what is this application is nothing but it's just like your the UPI app. So if you install a UPI app, either any UPI app, like for example PhonePe or Paytm or Bheem app, okay, you can do UPI transactions. But if you install Paytm and from Paytm to if you want to send to PhonePe account, then it is not possible. So the app that will support UPI transaction, from any app you can send UPI transaction to any other thing, but not to application specific to application specific. Like from @ of Paytm to @ UPI you cannot send it. So this is what like that. So here the application that is used for performing the transaction with especially Bitcoin transaction is of two types. One is full node, another is client nodes. Full nodes, that application consisting of all the things like mining, trading, transaction, everything will be there. While coming to the client, don't have mining facility, only transaction facility. And the entire blockchain will not be stored at their sites. Okay. So these are the applications, like Core Bitcoin is one application which was already developed, which is developed in C++, and other applications are like Bitcoin J. This is also an application. Lib Bitcoin. This is also developed in C++. BTCD. This is in Go language. It was developed. Now these are currently running successfully. The Satoshi Nakamoto has given his own developed own client, which is called Original Satoshi Client. Okay, many people still using this Satoshi client, and you may also use this Bitcoin J or Lib Bitcoin or BTCD, or you may also use some other web-based wallets. We can also, these clients are also said to be wallets kind of things. These wallets can also be used for performing this transaction. So these web-based wallets can also be used. So I hope by this time you come to know what is the flooding and how the transaction, whenever the transaction is generated, how it will be spreaded over the network. If it is spreaded, how you will view that particular transaction. You will view the transaction via the Bitcoin client. So in this also two types of nodes will be there: full nodes and client nodes. Full nodes will be having the entire blockchain on their system. At the same time, have the power of mining and do many tasks. Where in the case of client nodes, don't have all these facilities, but they can perform the transactions. They can initiate the transaction, they can verify the transaction, and they can send the transactions. That means they can do the transaction. This is what the meaning. So by having understood this, so let's consider the Bitcoin blockchain network, which is a distributed network. And here are the transactions, TX1, TX2, TX3, so many transactions are there. And whenever any transaction is generated, so it will be flooded in the network. So this will be completely flooded in the network. Once it is flooded, so obviously in this network, you will be having the miners sitting in this network somewhere. So because you don't know how much big is the network, as we have seen this, it is spread over the entire world. You don't know what is the exactly where the miners are sitting. So these miners may receive these transactions. So once these miners receive the transaction, they will verify whether the transaction is a correct transaction or not. So once they verify, they will be having this particular thing, TX, the verification of the transactions. And once they verify this transaction for every period of time, some limited period of time, these particular transactions are included into a block, and this block will be attached to the blockchain. Okay, so already this blockchain is there, and already previous block is there, and to the previous block, this block is attached, because this previous block details are known, and they will use the hash of the previous block and use along with these transactions. And these transactions we have seen in the previous thing, how it will be Merkle root will be developed, and Merkle root hash will be generated, and previous hash is there, the metadata hash, everything will be added, and the hash of this block will also be generated, and this block will be added to the blockchain. Now once this block is created, again this block will also be flooded in the entire network. So whenever this block is flooded in the entire network, obviously we have seen just now the full node and client node. Full nodes will be having the entire blockchain. So once the entire blockchain is there and this block is flooded in the network, automatically this block will be added at the end of the blockchain. So in that way, the blockchain will be updated. Like that, over a period of time, the blocks will be updated at a full node side. So this full nodes will be operated by the miners. I hope by this time you come to know the entire flooding procedure, validation procedure of the transaction, and how these validated transactions are grouped into a packet called block, and how this block is added to the blockchain. And once the block is added to the blockchain, and this block will be flooded in the entire network, the full nodes which are having the blockchain on their systems will be get updated with the newly created block. So in this, some questions we need to understand, because everything in an explanatory manner we cannot present it. So that is the reason, once you having the understanding of this particular concept, we can go for answering some questions. These are very important questions because which are related to this flooding concept. So do the transactions are flooded in sequence? Because whenever you generate any packet or in the data communication, the packets will be spreaded in the network according to the sequence number. The first sequence number, next sequence number, third sequence number, like that. So do the transactions are flooded in the sequence number? Sequence is nothing but as the transactions generated are according to the timestamp, only the transactions will be spreaded in the network. So the answer is it is completely random. You cannot predict which transaction will be flooded in which direction. So do the transactions are flooded in the sequence? No, it is completely random. No one knows in which order the transactions flood in the network. Okay, so that is the beauty of this Bitcoin blockchain. It's completely random in nature. Can we predict which transaction are included in the block? So this transaction 1, transaction 2, these are the flooded in the network. But you look at in the block, do the transactions are in sequence? TX2, TX11, TX21 were added in the block. Okay, do the transactions were added like this TX1, TX2, TX3, TX4 like that? No. TX2 was added, TX11 was added, TX21 is added. You cannot predict which transaction will be included in which block. Even miner cannot do that. Okay, no, it is completely random. You cannot predict in which order the transactions are added into the block. That will be completely random and decided by the blockchain framework. Okay. Do miners have authority to add specific transaction to a block? No, you cannot do anything in this. Even miner cannot do anything in this. The blockchain framework itself will take what are the valid transaction in a random fashion, and those are included in the blockchain. No, even miners are unaware of which transaction is added in which block. What is the frequency of creation of block in Bitcoin blockchain? So how much with how many regular intervals this block will be created? So a block will be created for every 10 minutes. Okay, usually for every 10 minutes, whatever the transactions that are generated and validated in the network, randomly it will pick whatever the transaction is there, that will be included in the block. What is the maximum size of a block in the Bitcoin blockchain? So the maximum size that you can allot, that is the maximum size of the Bitcoin blockchain block is 1 MB. So one block is 1 MB size. So how many transactions can fit in the block? Then if it is 1 MB size, then how many transactions can be fitted? Because whatever the transactions you do, all these transactions will be hashed. So hash of the transaction means here SHA-256 you are going to use. SHA-256 means 256 bit message digest you will get. 256 message digest, 256 bit message digest. Like that, how many transactions you can include, and the metadata should also be included, and Merkle root should also be included, nonce will be included. So like that, so many, all this should be included, and this part should be included. So within 1 MB size, how many transactions can be fitted? So maximum 6 to 7 transactions can be fitted in a block. These 6 to 7 transactions will be fitted in a block, and this block will be generated for every 10 minutes. That means it's a very, very slow procedure. If you look at during the Diwali time or any other time in the big bazaar or any supermarket, in 10 minutes, how many transactions will happen? So the number of transactions may cross 100 also sometimes. So that is, if it is so, then when this particular transactions will be added in the block and block will be created. So it is a very, very slow procedure. So how long anyone to wait to confirm a block is a verified block? If in this slow rate, if I have started my transaction now I have done my payment, then how much time I need to wait to verify that whether the transaction is added to the block and that block is a verified block? Because we have seen previously to escape from the forks, we have seen that at least 6 consecutive blocks it will check, and after 6 consecutive blocks, whatever is the longest chain is there, that chain will be considered as the valid chain, and the forks will be avoided. This we have seen previously. So that means 6 consecutive blocks. That means one block creation will take how much time? 10 minutes. So one block will take 10 minutes, and 6 consecutive blocks means they will take how many minutes? 1 hour. That means to get confirmation of my transaction was included in the block, and that block is successfully verified, and with that block only the next blockchain is going on. To confirm this, I need to wait at least 1 hour. So at least 1 hour I need to wait to get confirmation from the block. Okay, so that is 6 consecutive blocks. That is considered as the longest chain. So that means by looking at all these things, one can confirm that the main issue with the blockchain is lack of scalability and throughput. So the throughput is number of transactions that are included in the block is very low, and also to get confirmation about the block, you are supposed to wait at least 1 hour time. So hence the main issue with the blockchain is the lack of scalability and also throughput. There is no high throughput, very low throughput. Anyhow, this is the Bitcoin blockchain is considered as the mother of all blockchains. The reason is this is the only the blockchain which this is the only the application have used the blockchain for the first time in the entire history. So that is the reason this blockchain, Bitcoin blockchain, is considered as the mother of all blockchains. And by learning the by knowing the difficulties and by observing its working procedure, many other blockchain frameworks have been developed. So far we have seen the this flooding of the block and how the flooding of the transaction, flooding of the block, and how the transaction verification will be done by the miners in a overview. As an overview we have seen, and how the valid transactions are included in the block, and how the block will also be flooded, and its related technical issues. All these things we have seen, and finally we concluded that the Bitcoin blockchain is lacking the scalability and also throughput. Now we'll see the second question: how to create identity and how to verify the identity. Generate a new random key APIs, because the Bitcoin blockchain uses the public key cryptography. In public key cryptography, we'll be having two things like public key and a private key. So first one is generate a new random key pair, that is PK and SK. PK means public key, SK means secret key. PK is the public key. It may be used as your name, because public key can be given to anyone, but the secret key must be kept secret with you. So whatever the public key is given to you, that public key can be given to outside world as your name. So don't directly give the public key, because public key giving directly, you don't know, because it is a very lengthy one and very difficult to understand also. That is the reason it is advised to create a hash of public key and use it as address. So if you hash the public key using SHA-256, as we have seen previously, the Bitcoin blockchain uses the SHA-256 as the hash function. If you perform the hash of the public key, obviously you will get 256-bit address. So that will be used as your address. Okay. And SK is the secret key which can be used to prove your identity. That should be kept at your side only. You should not give to anyone. One can control the identity because secret key, SK is secret key and known to them only, because you know your secret key. You should not give to anyone. So that is the reason if you encrypt the data with the secret key and sends out, with public key, if anyone verify, and if they get that verification, then automatically they will come to know that you have sent this particular message. If PK is random, then it is difficult to know who is participating in the network. So you can have any number of public key, any type of public keys, but secret key should be kept secret. So if you keep on changing this public key, then it is very, very difficult to for anyone to identify who is participating in the network. So you may get a doubt that once the public key and secret key is given, how you can vary the public key. Recall the elliptic curve cryptography, in which what is public key, what are the points generated on the curve are the public keys. So if I have given a point on the elliptic curve to you, can you do the point addition, point doubling, this kind of operations? So if I have given a point P to you, can you do 2P, 3P, 4P, 5P? Like that you can generate any number of points as you wish. Obviously you can do it. So this is what they call random key, that is varying of the public key means. So this public key variation, as the number of public keys are varying, so it is very, very difficult to know who is participating in the network, because every time a key is changed, hash of that key will also change. When hash of the key is changed, the address will also change. When the address is changed, the rest of the network will feel that okay, some new participant has come. May feel like that. Maybe you are the only person, but they may feel that some new address has come. So this is what the thing. So if PK is random, then it is difficult to know who is participating in the network. Hence, by generating the key pairs, anyone have any number of identities. So this is what the difficulty in the Bitcoin. No one knows okay, who is participating in the network, because they may change the address and they may come because of the public key flexibility. These are called as addresses in the blockchain. So one can have any number of addresses. So recall from ECC, if a point on elliptic curve is given as public key, one can generate any number of public keys by performing point doubling operation. So this is what the beauty of elliptic curve cryptography. That is the reason this ECC concept has been used in the Bitcoin, especially to hide the identity of a person, or limiting the identity of a person to a particular address. They can change the addresses whatever they want. But how to remember these addresses? Then no one can remember these addresses. So that is the reason in the Bitcoin wallets, that whatever you install, you will be having the address like this. You can see here, this is the Bitcoin wallet. This is a standard Bitcoin wallet used for the Bitcoin operations. And you can see this in the wiki wallet, that is en.bitcoin.it/wiki wallet. So in this you can see this diagram here, your Bitcoin address. So this is the Bitcoin address. What is this? This is the hash function, hash address or hash value. What is this hash value? Hash value of your public key. So this is the hash value of your public key. So no one can remember this hash value, or no one can note it on paper. So the reason what this wallet is doing is it is creating a QR code for this particular address. If anyone scan this QR code, automatically this address will come into the picture. Okay, so this is the QR code. So this QR code will be generated with this address. So if I want to send you any thing, then I cannot type like 1K, capital K, capital G, capital E. So instead I will scan this QR code, or you may send this QR code. So they will scan the QR code, automatically the address will come. And you may also set okay, how many bitcoins, BTCs to be sent, or something like, just like how UPI payment will be done. Okay, and here this is, you look at here, received, how much was received from whom, and these details like your bank transaction details, like how it will be there. And please remember here, look at blockchain downloading 4 days behind. That means you have used this wallet or updated the wallet, and the entire blockchain was downloaded onto your computer almost 4 days behind, 4 days back. So after 4 days you are logging into the blockchain network. So 4 days blocks, whatever the blocks were created, were impending. So those blocks will be downloaded and attached to the blockchain which is there on your hard disk. So the full nodes will be having the entire blockchain on their hard disk. Okay. So public and private key pairs are stored in the wallets. So public key will be visible, private key is not visible. Okay. Bitcoins are sent and received to the public addresses, that is hash of public. Whenever user opens a wallet, user is provided with a private and public address. So this same address will not be there for the next login. If you again open it, you will get a new address. So how is it possible? Recall the point doubling operation in the elliptic curve cryptography. So like that, some random address, random public address will be generated like this. So the public address is blockchain is the blockchain address, looks as 26 to 35 alphanumeric characters. Look at here, these are the alphanumeric characters. And these Bitcoin wallets can be broadly classified into 4 types, like software wallets, so ZipPay, Unocoin, JXX. These are the examples of software wallets. While coming to the web wallets, web wallets is blockchain.com. We have seen previously the blog via blockchain.com. That is a web wallet. Like how you will use a Paytm wallet on your mobile phone, also you may log in via web Paytm, and you can also do operations there, just like this. So it's a web wallet. And cold wallets. So the cold wallets, paper wallet, this is the paper wallet in which usually you will store the private key. You will store the private key in this usually, because public key can be known to anyone, private key should not be known to anyone. So that is the reason, to provide security, we use these cold wallets and hardware wallets, which are called ledgers. To work with the software wallets and web wallets, these two must be connected to internet. Software and web wallets are internet connection, or require internet connection. Otherwise, they will not work. While coming to the cold and hardware wallets, are just like you connect to the internet and get the information and can be disconnected. So that the information will be reside in your wallets. So cold and hardware wallets does not require internet connection. While coming to the software and web wallets require internet connection. So far we have seen how this particular identity will be maintained, that is via the public key and private key pairs. And the public key can be given to anyone. So instead of giving directly public key, you will hash the public key. Whatever the hash value is there, that is said to be address. So you can have any number of public keys, because just to recall from elliptic curve cryptography, that public key, whatever the first initial public key is given, with this public key you can generate any number of keys that you want for the public key. So how you can hold this public key and private key pairs that you cannot hold by writing on paper. Instead, you use the Bitcoin wallet and create an account, and that account must be verified. Especially in India, it must be verified by providing a KYC. Then the account will be created. Okay. And you can do remaining Bitcoin trading or Bitcoin mining, these kind of operations. So Bitcoins are sent, that is again, in these 4 types of wallets are there: software wallets, web wallets, cold wallets, and hardware wallets. First 2 wallets require internet connection. Second 2 wallets, no need of having internet connection. And here, this is the basis of Bitcoin: public keys and addresses. This is the QR code will be generated for the public key. And remember, ECDSA, elliptic curve digital signature, is used to generate a public key from the private key. The public key can be used to verify transactions signed using the private key. 64-byte public key are unwidely and are hashed down to 20 bytes address. So this 20 bytes address means you will be having the combination of 26 to 35 alphanumeric characters. So this is scaled down to 20 bytes address. So that is the reason this is the address you will get here. This address cannot be remembered, so that is the reason corresponding QR code will be generated. So in this lecture, we have seen how the flooding will be done, how transactions will be flooded, and how these particular transactions will be taken by the full nodes. That means full nodes usually will be contained by the miners, how the miners will verify these transactions and will add to the blockchain, and technicalities or technical difficulties with the block creation, how many transactions will be included in the block, And we have seen that Bitcoin blockchain can support maximum of 6 to 7 transactions per block, and the block size is of 1 MB, and creation of the block is also 1 block per 10 minutes. And to get confirmation that whether your block is really added and a valid path in the blockchain, then you are supposed to wait for at least 6 consecutive blocks to be created. So for each block it is of 10 minutes. For 6 consecutive blocks it is of 60 minutes. That is also almost equal to 1 hour. So you are supposed to wait for 1 hour time. To get the block approval. So that is the reason we identified the problem with this is scalability, and throughput is the main problem of the Bitcoin blockchain. Anyhow, the Bitcoin blockchain is considered as the mother of all blockchains. It has given the scope for developing the blockchain to many other fields. So that is the reason it is very important to study this blockchain in deep. So that is the reason we did the analysis of that. Then we have moved to how to check the identity of the sender. So the identity of the sender will be done with the help of the public key and private key pairs, and how the addresses will be generated from the public key. And because it is very difficult for remembering public keys, so how the Bitcoin wallets will help us in generating the QR code, and what type of Bitcoin wallets can be used, and how the Bitcoin wallet will go for validating of transaction with the help of the ECDSA algorithm. These concepts we have seen in this lecture. In the next lecture, we'll see answering the rest of the questions, like how to check the balance of the sender, and how to avoid the double spending, and how to solve the hash puzzles. These kind of concepts, and also incentives. These concepts we'll see in the next lectures.